This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning. This is an important election year for the Lansing City Council. 4 seats are up. And what makes it important is there are significant challengers, at least one in each race. 2 of them are with us today. Later in the show, we'll talk to Lansing School Board member Peter Spatafor, who's seeking an at-large seat. First up, though, is a guest who's running against his former boss in the 2nd Ward. He's former city auditor Jim DeLine. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. A significant challenger. Thank you.
Well, well, and I think because of your name, your name recognition is probably higher than most. And before we get into some of the issues, I'd like to find out more about you, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
Tell me your background. You're on.
Well, I'm a public servant. I started public service with the City of Lansing in 1992. As a temp, they sent me to Lansing Police Department after the early retirement. They needed some temporary employees. And I just felt right at home, and they liked me, and I liked them, and eventually I got hired. Stayed there as a real employee for 18 and a half years, and then moved to 3 years as the city's internal auditor. So I'm a Lansing resident. I live, work, and play here. And I retired from the city council about a year ago now, and running for city council gives me a chance to continue that public service to my town.
Mm-hmm. Are you doing anything else in retirement?
Well, like I said, I live, work, and play here. I have always, professionally, no.
So you don't have any other
No, my playtime, though, continues. I've always been an annual volunteer to the Jazz Fest, as well as to the Capital City Film Festival.
And tell me a little about your personal background. Where did you grow up, go to school, and all that?
I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Quincy, Michigan, which is south of here, down by the Indiana-Ohio state line. And that's one of the things that attracts me to running in the ward, is because I've got my 2nd ward where I have lived for almost 19 years. And it's my little town. It's got the hospital. It's got the high school. It's got the diners. Mm-hmm. And it's where I shop. And so from Quincy, Michigan, to Michigan State to get a bachelor's degree, and as well as an MBA. I'm a single dad. I've got a couple grown sons. I grew my family through the foster adoption program. And great kids and loving kids. And
the 2nd Ward, what are the boundaries?
Boundaries of the 2nd Ward are all the way to the east, on the east, all the way to East Lansing, all the way down to the College Town Apartments on Jolly Road. And then to the west, we go to Washington Avenue. So when you hear a lot of controversy about the 3200 building and bed bugs and everything, that's also a concern of mine, because across the street is 2nd Ward. And then to the north, we go to the Potter Park Zoo. And like I say, to the south, we go all the way to the city boundary, down to those homes that look like they might be in Holt, but they're not.
Yeah, okay. So a big ward.
Big ward.
Okay, so let's talk about some issues. And one that the City Council struggling bringing to a head is the Sanctuary City one. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on, I guess the question in my mind is, if it walks and talks like a duck, why not call it a sanctuary city? Because
and I think that's true. One of the things, though, that I would be remiss if I didn't point out is I'm not running for city council on today's hot topic. I'm running to be there for 4 years. I bring some very unique qualifications that nobody on the dais has, with a business degree and as an ex-employee for the city. So as far as what are the how do I feel about the hot topics of this week? Well, yeah, I do have opinions on them. I'm an opinionated
so what's
person.
Your opinion on
My
this
opinion
one?
on the sanctuary city is just as you say. The administration in Washington is going to call us a sanctuary city, whether we use that term or not, because we've got all the qualifying details in the documents. And so I think it's kind of a moot point whether we actually term ourselves as a sanctuary city or not. I would lean towards doing that, though, if for no other reason is I said, I'm a Lansing guy. Lansing won't be bullied. Lansing will not be bullied. You know, if you think you're going to bully us, you know, with threats out of Washington, D.C., that's not us. We don't cower. And I think that we have seen the judicial system doesn't necessarily support some of the anti-constitutional, some of the legal wranglings that he's trying to do. So that's not a big fear in my mind as well.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and your background, of course, is in finance and budgeting and that sort of thing. You know, we hear from the mayor that the city is still in danger of going bankrupt. And do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, why don't you?
No, you know, and we just saw that at the most recent Monday night City Council meeting. We had the annual audit presented to us by external auditors, by the director of finance, by the internal auditor, and they all pretty much came to the same conclusion that that Lansing has some challenges, but is doing better than before, and that there is we have a problem with unfunded liability, but Burl, there's no bill that's due tomorrow that we can't pay. We need to step up the contributions to that. And the other reason that I would disagree with the mayor's terminology about us going bankrupt is that he brags every year for the last 2 years that they've been able to add more to the reserves. And you wouldn't do that if you were needed a life jacket.
Well, all right. So we don't go bankrupt in the next couple of years, but long term, if we hit another recession, and hopefully it's not as bad as the Great Recession, but what if there is a significant downturn?
Then we'll have to deal with it. You know, my background with the police department was I was with the police department for 18 and a half years as their budget supervisor. So I had to deal with the ups and downs. I had to deal with, you know, when we got first hit with some downturns, we had to scale back the number of officers. Fortunately, at the time, we were a little bit desk heavy. You know, and so rather than hurting patrol, we reduced a lot of the in-house officers, an identification officer, a personnel officer, some of those, traffic follow-up officer, people that were inside working rather than really hurt patrol. But then we got hit further, and you'll remember we had to lay off. Right. So yes, you know, if it happens again, we've been there, done that, and we'll deal with it.
Okay. The mayor, in part because he is concerned about the long-term financial future of the city, has opened the door for consideration of selling the Lansing Board of Water and Light. What are your thoughts on that?
I would have to look at the figures, but I would be against it initially. There are real advantages to doing things in-house. The financial advantages are really hard to overcome. To have your own utility in-house is a real cost savings to the owners who happen to be us, who happen to be the users of the water and light coming out of there. And by the same token, the same thing goes true when the government decides to outsource something. You really need to look at the figures. What are you know, if you're outsourcing and that source is going to save you money because they're paying substandard wages, and you're not saving any money. You're not doing your customers, your residents any good.
One of the issues that will certainly come up if there is a challenger to Mayor Bernero, as is likely, is the Janine McIntyre situation.
Yes.
And some members of Lansing City Council, including then President Judy Brown Clark, were very frustrated because the mayor's office won't tell City Council why that happened. And on top of it, some people think the mayor violated the city charter change that he pushed, which was no payouts. What are your thoughts on this whole matter?
I'll tell you what he violated. He violated the trust of our citizens. We need transparency. As internal auditor for a city council for 3 years, that was my job, was to look at things and make them public. And in the payout to Janine McIntyre, we really lost the transparency that the citizens of Lansing deserve.
Do you think? Do you have any thoughts on why she was paid off?
No. I am active in the community. I was active in my job at City Council. I've heard all kinds of rumors, none that I would say I have any that have any credibility with me.
Okay, you're taking on an incumbent, Tina Houghton.
Yes.
What is she doing that you're not satisfied with?
I think and this is really a second ward thing. People have to decide if they're going to run for city council. Are they going to run for a ward position, or are they going to run for at large? And mine is ward. I told you the second ward is my small town. I don't think our small town is being served well enough right now. The developments that we're seeing are the importance of bringing millennials downtown, the importance of Michigan Avenue being a great entryway to the city. I think the second ward needs more attention. We've got some empty buildings that I'd like to see developed. Our citizens in the second ward are constantly saying, "Well, look at my sidewalk. Look at the potholes in the road," and so I would like to see more advocacy for those of us in the second ward.
Why do you think Tina hasn't provided that?
Well, I don't know why. As I said, being an employee with City Council, I have seen, and being a member of the second ward, I hear that second ward citizens are having trouble getting emails returned, or having troubles getting phone calls returned. And like I said, one thing that I really think that I can do is be an advocate for people in the second ward.
Mm-hmm. You would also be able to devote perhaps be able to devote more time to it. I don't want to make any judgments about how much time she's devoting to it, but what are your thoughts about that?
That is a real advantage that I would have. The City Council has 8 positions, and we need some diversity up there. Okay, right now there isn't anyone up there who is retired.
Right.
And what some people don't know is that on the 10th floor of City Hall, where there are City Council chambers, every City Council member has their own office. Bro, not one of those 8 will tell you what their office hours are. And I can do that. I can have office hours for the public to come in, as well as access to, each one of them has their own phone number, each one of them has their own email address.
Right.
And I can devote some time to that.
We have less than a minute left,
okay.
Jim. You've worked with Mayor Bernero. You have had some differences with Mayor Bernero. Mm-hmm. Tina Houghton is considered a staunch supporter of Mayor Bernero on City Council. Where are you going to be?
I will be Jim DeLine. I will be the second ward council member, and I will look at issue by issue which way I should go on that.
And are you going to be able to talk to him, you think?
Oh, absolutely. The trouble that I see there is that it's a two-way street. And as you know, unlike previous mayors, this mayor does not go to city council meetings. He'll go on occasion, give his spiel, get up and walk out. Mm-hmm. And so, absolutely, I'm willing to talk to the mayor. Like you said, I used to work for him and talk to him all the time.
All right. So. Speaking of talking, we've got to stop doing that right now. But thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Jim DeLine. We'll have you back later in the election year.
Real good. Thank you.
All right.